The Secret River by Australian woman Kate Grenville. Many people are surprised when I call myself the world analyst. Let me tell you the truth about TeacherKaligoDottoNjige from Tanzania, Africa. After I finished analyzing all the books in Tanzania, God gave me a far vision to analyze the books of nations and nations so that society can learn. Today I have brought to you analysis of the novel from Australia titled The Secret River by Kate Grenville. This novel published in 2005. Kate Grenville wrote this novel talking about the life history of her grandfather and his family as a whole. This novel is about Kate Grenville's life journey. It shows various themes in this novel, such as classes, death, exploitation, racism, land alienation, love affair, and many others. I ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel called TeacherKaligoDottoNjige, the world analyst from Shinyanga region, Tanzania, East Africa. Listen about a title of this novel, The Secret River. The title is a quote from W.H. Stanley's 1968 Boyer lecture, where he says, "A secret river of blood runs through Australian history." He is referring, of course, to the often brutality relationship between indigenous and non-indigenous Australians in the past. The Secret River is a historical novel telling the story of William Thornhill, a poor Englishman from the early 19th century, who was deported and transported to New South Wales, Australia, in 1806 for safety. This novel tells the story of Australia's founding and the moral choice made when Europeans colonized, and that was already inhabited by Aboriginal people. During 18th century to mid-19th century, 162,000 men and women were transported to Australia, with majority from England. These people, known as convicts, had committed crimes such as larceny and robbery, acts which were considered severe offenses and demanded heavy sentences. In order to deal with the overwhelming masses of criminals, the government exported crowds of convicts to Australia to serve their terms as laborers. The reason driving the deportations included an attempt to decrease poverty and crime in England, while concurrently developing the British colony in Australia. Many of the freed from England were destined for New South Wales, Australia. Those on the fleets include the criminal marines and their families living in a penal colony. The criminals were employed depending on their various skills. Farmer, boatman, servant, etc. were awarded a ticket of leave if they presented good behavior during labor. This means that etc. would become emancipists, where they were set free from the government's sentence and could begin a life for themselves by making their own living. This suited the government's goals for a successful and thriving colony, since it would only be possible if people were to work for themselves and not under the tyranny of the government. Although Australia was chiefly populated with indigenous Australians, the first century of colonization saw a drastic decline in their population. This was due to clash of desire for the land. The natives' innate protections possible for 40,000 years. The two cultures failed to ever create a peace agreement of compensation, and as a settlement overpowered and any possibility of the natives retaining their land. The Secret River exploration of this powerful change in Australian history is a poignant reflection of the past and demands attention to the sensitive issues of Australians and native relationship that is still present today. In 1806, William Thornhill, a man of quick temper and deep feelings, is transported from the slum of London to New South Wales for the term of his natural life. With his wife Sal and their children, he arrives in harsh land he cannot understand, but the colony can turn a convict into a free man. 8 years later, Thornhill sails up the Hawke's to claim 100 acres for himself. Aboriginal people already live on that river, and other recently arrivals, Thomas Blackwood, Smasher Sullivan, and Mrs. Herring, are finding their own ways to respond to them. Thornhill, a man neither better nor worse than most, soon has to make the most difficult choice of his life. Inspired by research into her own family history, Kate Grenville vividly creates the reality of settler life, its belongings, danger, and dilemmas. The Secret River is a brilliantly written book, a groundbreaking story about identity, belonging, and ownership. The Secret River is set in the early 19th century on what was then the frontier between British colonists and Australians indigenous people, and Hawke's River, 50 miles from Sydney. Many of its details are based on my own family history, like the character William Thornhill, my great-grandfather Solomon Weissman was an illiterate Samis Bergman who was transported to Australia in 1806 for stealing a load of timber. Within a few years, he was pardoned and took up land, as the euphemism goes, on the banks of the Hawke's. The land made him rich beyond anything he could have dreamed of in London. There was no going back. I would probably never know how he dealt with the fact that he had taken stolen land that belonged to the indigenous people of the area. The documentary record is completely silent on that matter, but the work of the historian makes it clear that there was violence between black and white on the Hawke's, even if Solomon Weissman was not part of it, and that was the story I had to try to tell. The story of one set people taking over the territory of others is the universal one, and it can't be evaded. When Grenville was a child, her mother, a keen keeper of the family tales, told stories about their ancestor Solomon Weissman. Weissman, the inspiration of the Secret River's protagonistic Will Thornhill, came to Sydney as a convict and eventually settled on the Hawke's River, where he established a fen run and an inn. Grenville's mother spoke of Weissman with pride and intrigue, believing her convict forebears had shown a bit of spirit in trying to get something for themselves and their families. For much of her life, Grenville did not question this family folklore, but walking across the sand Haber Bridge of Reconciliation the year of 2000. She exchanges a glance with an Aboriginal woman and images their ancestors meeting 200 years before such encounters. Grenville reflected were absent from the family stories, but sure, Wiseman had met the Haluk people of the Hawkball region. These events, Grenville writes in her memoir, Searching for the Secret Life, in the year of 2006, prompted an exploration of her family past. Let us look chapter 1, titled as The Strangers. This novel has 9 chapters titled by name, but also it is flashback plot. The events are non-chronological plot. The novel opens William Thornhill's first night in the penal colony of the New South Wales in the year of 1806. William sits outside the mud hut assigned to him and his family, his wife Sal, and 2 small children, Willie and Dicky. Chapter 2, titled as London. In part 1 of the novel, Grenville takes the reader back in time to William's life in London before his deportation of New South Wales. Chapter 3, titled Inside. The chapter opens shortly after William's arrival in New South Wales with his family in 1806. Chapter 4, titled as The Cleaning Forest. In September 1813, William Sal and their children Willie, Dicky, Bob, and Baby Mel arrive at the Thornhills Point to establish their claim to 100 acres of land. Chapter 5, titled as 100 Acres. William regularly runs the hop between the Hackball and Sand, bringing the settlers goods to market and returning with goods for them to purchase. In general, life is going well for the family. The hope brings the regular man. Sal now has a fireplace in the hut, and the children are benefiting from the fresh air and warm weather. Even Bob, who was always so sickly. Chapter 6, titled as Drawing a Line. Soon after the incidents with the Aborigine and the oyster of the smash Salvine's place, the atmosphere at Thornhills Point begins to change. Where once the Thornhills and their servants lived an easy peace with a clan of Aborigines, a feeling of fear now hangs over the settlers. Aborigines from all along the Hawkball pour into Thornhills Point for Solomon's gathering. Chapter 7, titled The Secret River. A week after the attack on the Webbs, William sails by Duck Creek, an area with an Aboriginal camp. William first notes the silence. He pulls in the boat to investigate. The camp is deserted except for dead bodies whose mouths are encrusted with vomit. Chapter 8, titled Mr. Thornhill's Villa. Mr. Thornhill's Villa provides a brief summary of the events that occur after the blood dispersal of the Aborigines. The original settlers have been replaced by new ones, except Mrs. Helling, who retreats into semi-isolation after the massacre, with a natural problem solved. The settlers flourish along the river. The last chapters, chapter 9, titled as Controversy Surrounding the Secret River. After the publication of The Secret River, Kate Grenville found herself at the center of public and the highly personal debate about the roles of writers interpreting the national history. Kate Grenville seeks to reveal the secret history of the violence on the frontier of colonial Australia between the white settlers and the black natives. This violence includes the massacre of Aboriginal community, incidents that contributed to the near extermination of the indigenous inhabitants. The prosperous white civilization that was established was therefore built over a black culture at the expense of the black people. This often involves the violence displacement of the Aboriginal from their ancestral tribal land. This has bequeathed a legacy of guilt that has compromised the concerns of Australian nations and provided the basis of a case for reconciliation and the granting of Aboriginal land rights. To Grenville, whites are to blame for the subsequent sorry state of mind of the Aboriginal people. They consequently have a moral responsibility to face the truth about their history and support policies that promote their moral redemption through reconciliation. While exploring the clash of culture and races along the colonial frontier, Grenville acknowledged that there was a spectrum of responses to the Aboriginal presence, ranging from advocating racist violence to the point of extermination, to a policy to give and take. To achieve peaceful accommodation in this context, Grenville examined the reason why otherwise good men will resort to or condemn evil acts of violence against the natives. Grenville cites the major contributors to the tragedy: fear, ignorance, barrier to communication, conflicting claims for land, and rightness, anger that manifested itself in an escalating cycle of violence and retribution. In addition, Grenville take the opportunity to celebrate, even glorify tribal aborigines as living tune with their natural environment. They were consequently better able to find food in the bush than the white settler, rather than depicting the blacks as benefiting from their proximity to white civilization. Grenville suggests that the white could have learned from the black how to better survive in the bush if they were open-minded enough to appreciate the lesson. Grenville also contrasting the Aboriginal and the Western notion of land ownership to establish the legitimacy of Aboriginal concept of tribal ownership. This provides a basis to reject the notion of terra nullius and give legitimacy to Aboriginal claim to land large. Kate Grenville employs several characters in her novel. Number one is William Thornhill, the protagonist of the novel. The second character is Sarah Thornhill, daughter of Mrs. Middleton and the wife of William Thornhill. Character number 3, Mel Thornhill, William's older sister. Number 4, Matt Thornhill, William's older brother. Number 5, James Thornhill, William's older brother. As the children, James and William sold books and the other items to help support the family. Another character is Liz Thornhill, William's older sister. Liz is the charge of youngest sibling in the family. Another character is Rob Thornhill, William's older brother. Rob was mentally impaired by fever at the age of 5. Number 8 is Middleton. Mr. Middleton, Sally's father. Mr. Middleton is a waterman who achieved a level of financial security for his family. Number 9 is Mr. Lucas, William's employer in London. Number 10, Will Thornhill, William and Sally's oldest child, born in London while alive in Australia when he is 5 years old. Kate Grenville employs third-person point of view. He used pronouns she, he, and they by referring the events surrounding the characters. Also show us land conflict, cultural conflict, and social conflict. And they also employed different language use or figurative language. Number 1 is through use of personification. The lock were what seemed alive, some old and solemn, out of the sea. The grey-skinned seacoast with their richly Christy and followed and rigid. The authors emphasized the age of the locks encompasses how indigenous Australians considered the land alive and aging. The second, figures of speech symbolism. River within the novel symbolize both prosperity and destruction. Grenville uses a parallel image of the river, Thames and the Hawkbell to trace Thornhill's fortune. The Thames is both the site of Thornhill L. prosperity and then his downfall, when it is freezes, destroying his dream of better life. Another is images employed in this novel. Role and position of women. In the Sacred River, gender and race intersect in the novel through the difference in treatment of engineers, men and women. Women traditionally played a central role within the Aboriginal family, government, and spiritual ceremonies. I have reached the end of the narration of this novel from Australia. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to me.